we will promote you to a panelist once the item is called that you're presenting on. So just hang tight and you'll be able to see all those controls once you're a panelist.
Okay, and we are streaming.
Great. Thank you, Eileen. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the December 6th, 2021 Art in Public Places meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order. A little housekeeping before we start the meeting, a reminder to committee members to keep your audio on mute unless you are speaking. Pursuant to Government Code Section 54953E and the recommendation of the Health Officer of Sonoma County, Art in Public Places Committee will be participating in this meeting via Zoom webinar. Members of the public may view and listen to the meeting as noted on the city's website and as noted on the agenda. Our recording secretary, will you please review how the public may comment and participate in today's meeting?
Members of the public wishing to speak during item 3, public comment, or during any of the scheduled items will be able to do so by utilizing the raised hand feature, or if calling in by pressing *9 on their phone. They will then be given the ability to address the committee. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Eileen. Next up, I would like to do roll call. Recording secretary, will you please take roll call?
Chair Kiefer.
Present.
Vice Chair Jones-Carter.
Present.
Member Adzarian. I think you're on mute.
Present.
Thank you. Member Baumgartner.
Present.
Member Fuentes.
Right here, present.
Let the record reflect that Member Nathanson has said that he will be joining a few minutes late and is not currently present.
Great, thank you, Eileen. Item number 3 is public comments. This is the time when any person may address matters not listed on the agenda, but which are within the subject matter of the jurisdiction. The public may comment on agenda items when the item is called. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes. Eileen, at this time, do we have any general public comments?
We do not, nor do we have any emails or voicemails for this meeting.
All right. Moving on to item 4. Item 4.1, approval of minutes. Today we are reviewing meeting minutes for approval from the November 1st, 2021 meeting. You all have a copy of the minutes. Are there any changes or corrections? Seeing none, would someone like to make a motion to approve?
I motion that we approve the minutes as written for the November meeting. No, October.
November 1st.
Sorry.
I'll second that motion.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Can we get a roll, or can we get a vote? Recording.
Chair Kiefer,
Yes.
Vice Chair Jones-Carter,
Yes.
Member Adzarian,
Yes.
Member Fuentes,
Yes.
Member Baumgartner.
Yes.
Thank you. Let the record reflect that the minutes have been approved as submitted.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Okay, moving right along. Item 5, scheduled items. Item 5.1, we have the Creative Sonoma Business Plan. Creative Sonoma Director Kristen Madsen will present an overview of the recently completed Creative Sonoma Business Plan for Creative Sonoma Business Plan 2021 and highlighted areas for possible intersection with the public art program. This item is recommended action, information, and discussion. I will now kick it off to Tara to introduce our speaker today.
Hey, thank you, Kristen, and welcome Kristen Madsen. As Chair Keeper just stated, we're happy to have you here to present the Creative Sonoma Business Plan. I know you have been the Director of Creative Sonoma for more than 5 years now, I believe. So it's wonderful to have you running this organization here in our community and to be great partners. We've worked together on many projects. So thank you for being here, and I will just let you run with it. Let us know if you need any assistance running your presentations. Otherwise, we'll let you control it from your end.
Great. Thank you, Tara, and thank you all for letting me steal some of your time. I know you're in a lot of meetings, and so hopefully this will be a little bit interesting and a little bit of a change of a pace for you all. As Tara said, we have Creative Sonoma has been around for just about 6.5 years now, and I have been the director for that time. I want to just give you a thumbnail of how we got to here, and then to get us up to this point of creating our new business plan, which we did with the same consultants you all used for your strategic plan. So some of this and the process will seem familiar. It was really great to be part of your strategic planning process and have Tara and Raisa both be part of our planning process, as well as we've been moving forward through this. Then I'll give you a couple of highlights of our plan, and as was mentioned, maybe looking for places where we think they naturally intersect, because I think that there is a lot of commonality, and then also talk you through sort of a big project that we are already underway in the planning on to work on together, with time for questions and comments along the way. So as I mentioned, been around for 6.5 years. We got started with one staff person and a $200,000 annual budget. We are now at 4 full-time staff and about $1 million annual budget. There have been ups and downs in that process. It wasn't a straight line. And some of those ups and downs came as a result of the various crises that we're all used to dealing with in Sonoma County these days. So fire, flood, fire, COVID is how we refer to that. I'm sure you have your own ways to deal with it. But that, in many respects, what was before all of those crises brings us really easily to where we are now and how we responded to COVID, because it's really in our response to COVID that the business plan, this new business plan, was born. One of our responses to COVID is a project that is a precursor to some of this work, and it's a project that we did in conjunction with the City of Santa Rosa, your art programming, as well as in 5 other communities around this county. And you may be familiar with this. In Santa Rosa, it was called Open and Out, which I'm sure you are familiar with. The generic name for it countywide was a creative reopening project. And so there were 5 other communities that participated. And I don't know how many of you, I'm thinking maybe none of you, according to Tara, have actually seen a brief video that we made specific to the Open and Out in Santa Rosa. And so I thought I would take just a couple of minutes to show you this video, and you'll get a clearer picture of what this was all about. So I'm going to share my screen, and hopefully this will work for everybody. Can you see my screen now? All right, so here goes, and let's hope the volume is up as well.
In response to the COVID shutdowns, Creative Sonoma funded a workforce of artists spread out all across the county to help our businesses reopen safely. We partnered with local chambers of commerce and downtown business organizations who handled all the logistics, like street closures and licensing and permitting. Our funds paid to match up the artists with businesses so that they could animate and enliven these spaces so that our community members would come back feeling not only safe, but also creatively engaged. Each of the participating communities pursued its own unique vision in this project, but all of them were grounded in the belief that the arts play a role in solving community problems and building community cohesion.
You know, I was really excited when we had the opportunity to apply for the Creative Reopening Grant funding, and we had so much hopes for outdoor dining because we're in the middle of COVID, and it just seemed right to be able to marry the two in the sense of businesses benefiting and having artistic elements to that work. And we were able to create a great marriage between art and parklets, and business retention.
This project is about welcoming people back, both directly and metaphorically. Directly, this creates an incentive to bring people down to the plaza and visit our businesses in the community. And indirectly, this creates a special gathering place that's going to bring people together. We're a hospitality community that didn't get to welcome guests in 2020, and this is a really great opportunity for us to just say, we're here, we're open for business, our community is thriving again, and we're excited to see people back here in our historic Sonoma Plaza.
We created the United States Portal Service behind me, and that box will receive letters to the past or future. You can send a letter through the Portal Service and we'll respond.
Art in public places is about kind of democratizing, the art world. A lot of the times art is behind museum walls and tucked away in places that are not accessible to the public. And so to put art up in spaces like this, especially, BIPOC spaces, it breaks down so many barriers, and it makes sure that we are able to tell stories that are unheard, and in a way that everyone can see it.
We have seen a big change, people waiting for our table, and it has improved our business.
Yeah, and we feel like it's been bringing in a lot more people just to see it, people stop by, and so we really feel that it's been really like a great addition to Petaluma, to downtown.
We had 87, almost 90% of our community tell us that they have been waiting for something just like Open and Out. This program, we know from direct feedback from our restaurants in particular, was the only reason they have been able to stay alive through this pandemic.
I see the space that's been created here as the most exciting thing I've seen happen in downtown Santa Rosa since I've been working for the city and since I've lived here. And it almost gives me goosebumps to even think that maybe this is the start of something that's going to last forever.
Thank you, Tara, for the fantastic summation for that video. That was really a great way to have that done. So we're crazy about that project because it really embodies so much of what we think we are and can be and should be in Sonoma County and doing this work. I'm going to take 1 second and turn off the video because it's still going. So, okay, I'm back. So what we're also really crazy about is it really shows how art plays a role, as you all know, in our public realm, in solving civic problems, in beautifying our downtowns, in building bridges, and all the good and wonderful things that art can do. That particular project was such a great example of them. And that, in many respects, fed our process for what we wanted to do as we came out of COVID. So Creative Sonoma had the great opportunity through a grant that we received from the Hewlett Foundation to take stock of where we were after COVID and think about where we wanted to go into the future. And it was through a program they funded that they called Adaptation Grants. And it was really designed for a number of arts organizations to figure out how they would adapt to the kind of changes that COVID was forcing on us all. And so and it was enough money for us to pay for a consultant to come in and work with us. And that's why we hired Third Plateau to come in and work with us and think about how we would respond as a government agency, a little different from obviously what some of the nonprofits were thinking about. What we ended up coming to very quickly was what we need to be is an organization for whom adaptation is our single most defining characteristic. We live in a place where we are, and in a time when we are going to have to adapt all the time. And so that needs to drive whatever it is that we decide we want to do. And in our document, our plan, you'll see we talk about it saying this was a unique opportunity to take a big step back, reassess who the community is, what the community needs, and reimagine how we can be of service. So that was sort of our mantra going into it, with adaptability being the core characteristic. All programs that we talked about have to be able to scale up or down depending on what resources are out there for us or depending on what the need is. We need to become a more visible and trusted partner with our other county departments. That we felt like that was critical because Creative Sonoma, even though we've been around for 6.5 years, county governments being what they are could say tomorrow, yeah, maybe this isn't our priority anymore. And if we're just seen as this sweet little tool program over here on the side that can get lopped off, that's one easy way to get rid of us and save some money in the budget. But if we are integrated with many more of the departments in county government and doing work that is government-wide and helping solve civic problems, a la the way the Open and Out program did, that makes it a little harder for anybody to say, yeah, it's just the arts, we don't need them. So those were two other driving forces for us as we went through the plan. And the third thing is it's an operations plan. It's not a strategic long-term plan, it's an operations plan. When adaptability is at the core of that, that should still last us for a good 4 to 5 years, we would think, no matter what kind of crises come our way. But it was really about what are we going to do and how are we going to do it in this next period of time. So I'm going to go through just a handful of items on this now, and I want you to be listening for areas that you hear that will feel reminiscent to you in your strategic plan. I read through your plan again on Friday, and we have a lot in common, which means that there's a lot of room for us, I think, to work together, and we can talk about that as we get through to it. So let me bring up, I'm going to share my screen again now. And this is just an easier way to look at some of the information that's in the plan than going through it page by page in terms of what you have in front of you. So there I am all the way at the bottom. We need to start at the top. All right, so as I mentioned, we work with Third Plateau, a really fantastic consulting partner, and as they were with you, they were really thoughtful and creative with us. So our vision, which we didn't really have articulated before, is that we wanted creativity to be a defining economic driver for Sonoma County. Like you, we are housed in the Economic Development Department of the county, as you are in the city, and we really like it there. We like being there as opposed to other areas of government because we feel like it gives a certain credibility and heft to our community as economic contributors versus economic drains. I think people think about arts and creativity and they think, oh, they just all take money to have grant funds to succeed and they don't give anything back economically. And we all know that that's not true. So being housed in the Economic Development Board helps us with that. Our mission stayed the same as what it was before we started, which is that we are here to support and advance the creative community of this county. So it's pretty basic, pretty broad, and we're happy about that. So we did do guiding principles, which we had not had before, and I won't read through all of these, but I'll point to a few that I think are especially critical. First of all, the third bullet, equity drives creativity. We are believers of that, and we are trying to remind ourselves and work carefully that we embody that belief, that we don't just speak it, but that we actually embody it in all of our actions. We also love the fifth bullet, that creativity is a muscle. That really speaks to the fact that everyone has some creativity in them. They just need to exercise it. And for us, that means we can speak to our whole community as audiences and appreciators of art in a different way if we remind them that they have creativity inside themselves. And it's not something that is just precious and lives on a shelf. That 6-point, culture workers must be paid. That matters. I'm sure the artists on this phone call understand that, and the artists in our community do, but we feel like there's room for us to do work on that in Sonoma County, where there is not always an understanding and therefore appreciation that making art costs money, like making any other service or commodity, and that artists deserve to be paid for that work. They don't do it just because it's fun and they like it and they're compelled to do it, although those things are also often true. And then the last piece, as I've been saying, adaptability fuels impact. And so that's, again, a watch phrase for us throughout all of this plan. So when we devised the plan, we decided to use some simple organizational structures that made sense to us and would help us think cleanly and clearly about what we're doing. And we took a page out of the business sector on demand side and supply side programs. And so we have programs and services for the demand side, and that would be speaking to the audiences who are users and purchasers and supporters and sponsors of the arts, and then the supply side, which is trying to work with the artistic and creative community. And so I'm going to spend, these next two slides are where I'll spend the predominant amount of time that I will on the plan itself, to talk about the kinds of programs that we are in the middle of undertaking or about to as we go through this process. So the first is on the demand side. And there are 4 programs here. Some of them we are already working on, and some are relatively new for us. And in this regard, we're talking again about the government partners in terms of the demand side government partners. So our folks over in the county government, the other departments that are there, as I mentioned, and also businesses. We haven't really done a ton of work reaching out to the businesses in our community to figure out how Creative Sonoma might be of service to them to help them think about art in their business decisions and their business plans and how they might use that. So that's who we're talking about here. And the online resource bank is one that we have had already going that can be a service for the whole community, but we think especially businesses. We have a really robust website full of what we call creative profiles. There are maybe 700 of them. This is where any individual or organization or enterprise that has creativity at its core can have an individual profile on our website. They can put photos, they can put audio, they can put videos up, and they can talk about themselves. I am such and such an artist. My work is in watercolor. My studio is open from 2 to 5 every day or by appointment only. And here's samples of my work, and here's how to reach me, and links to all of my social sites. It's robust in the sense of we have a bunch of profiles up there, but the individual profiles some of them are dated, some of them are not very complete. It's not as effective as we would like it to be. And quite frankly, we think there's probably thousands or more profiles that could be up there. We'd love to be able to point to that site to anybody that wants to do anything with artists and creative companies and say, go to the website first. It's fully searchable. See what you can find. We don't want to necessarily be picking who people should meet with and talk to. We'd like them to explore and find out who those people are. So we need to work to make that a more robust and effective tool. Consultancy, I kind of touched on that a little bit. That's where we would really like to work with businesses or other entities that need one-on-one services to think about how art could be incorporated into their business. So when we're talking about a business, we're thinking of things like maybe you want to talk to someone about putting artwork up on your walls in your business. Okay, we could help with that, or point you to people who do that for a living. But maybe we could help you think about how you might use an artist in one of your creative brainstorming sessions for your business, because we know that artists will bring a different perspective to your standard ruts that you get into when you think about planning. Or maybe you could think about hiring an artist to work with your HR team for team building activities. That would be wonderful and fun and creative and would give your folks an outlet that's different. So how do we help work one-to-one to develop an art plan for someone who's looking for that? Policy development, that is going to be related very much right now to thought leadership, because in the policy development area, we are very much working on the idea of having a % for art ordinance for the county of Sonoma. You all probably know that you have a fantastic program in Santa Rosa. We do not have one for the county of Sonoma. And so we have leaned on, I should say, Tara and your team extensively for any projects you've done in that area. But we are ready, we think, to get to the county and say, it's time, we need to adopt a policy for the entire county. And so for any unincorporated areas or any county projects, we need to make sure that we've got art associated with that. And so that's our key work in policy development in the coming year. And then in thought leadership, it's very much the same thing as we were just talking about with consultancy for businesses, but this time with our government partners. How do we help our government partners think about using art in their day-to-day activities? How many public relations campaigns could be improved if an artist was involved in helping develop the messaging or the packaging of what those campaigns are about, et cetera. So that's the demand side that we're thinking about. I hope I'm not going too fast. Let me raise your hand if you're if you need me to stop. On the supply side, a little more robust. As I say, that's where we probably focus more of our work already. And so we had a little more room to build and expand what we were doing there. Some of you are familiar with what we've been doing in this regard, but networking has been a critical piece, trying to bring artists and arts organizations together with each other and get to learn in peer learning sessions and get to know what each other is doing, and also a lot of workshops. So we've been doing a fair amount of professional development since we got here on all kinds of different subjects that we think are important. We're very excited about the potential of doing one together with the city of Santa Rosa, although it's going slowly because our chosen facilitator for some workshops we want to do on equity, arts, and social justice is really in demand, a woman from Oakland that we're trying to get to come up here, but we hope to be working on that as well as other workshops and continuing to do that good work. New to that side of the equation, though, is our Arts and Equity Fellowship Program, which we will be launching in about a week to 10 days. This will be a fellowship program for up-and-coming leaders who work in and for BIPOC communities in Sonoma County, with the idea of trying to raise those voices and provide opportunity for people who have a really thorough and thoughtful understanding of those communities and their needs to get training and money to do what they do and get stronger at it and get better at it and be more able, we hope, to get into the river, if you will, of resources that are available for artists that some of our folks in this community have been standing outside of because they haven't known how to write a grant or haven't even known that these programs were available or have figured out how to engage with the kind of resources that can help them do the work that they want to do. So we're doing this fellowship. These folks will get money, they'll get training, they'll be part of a cohort that will last for about 6 months together to work with each other and network with each other. And then also we're paying them a stipend to attend the workshop. We know that for many folks, actually taking time off a regular day job or for childcare gets in the way of them coming and taking advantage of professional development. So that's another piece of this that we think will hopefully help us get to artists and voices that haven't been at our table, certainly in the past, and we hope to raise them up in the broader community. And the Creative Engineers Program, I'm just going to briefly touch on because it's more in the future, but is there anyone on the call who is not familiar with Leadership Santa Rosa, the program Leadership Santa Rosa? It's very briefly, it's a program run by a committee of the Chamber of Commerce that brings in up-and-coming leaders in the community to meet over the course of a year on a monthly basis and learn about the various industries that comprise Sonoma County by having a day full of panels and guest speakers, et cetera, and so that they feel that they know better how to work as leaders in the community. Well, if you take that model and you shrink it down to be just about the creative sector here, won't be necessarily as long, won't be as many sessions, but to bring people who want to know about the creative industry to know what's happening in this community and therefore hopefully groom new sets of good champions and spokespeople and advocates and potentially board members or potentially arts and creative workers in our community. Sometimes folks that are newcomers to this community that want to know what's happening here and don't know how to get introduced, or some folks who have been here for a while. So we're hoping to run that to just sort of expand again our network of who are we serving and how are they supporting the overall creative community here. And then briefly on the far side, the other supply side is where we have our arts education work. We've been working in arts education pretty diligently for at least the last 4 or 5 years, and we will continue to do that work. And we'll approach that in a micro version of supply and demand. On the supply side, working with teaching artists, helping train them, helping them feel like their skills are up to speed on how to work in schools, how to go through the bureaucracy of schools, how to make an arts curriculum that fits the state standards in arts education. We did already a couple series on trauma-infused trainings for artists to help kids that were dealing with all the trauma that they're experiencing in our communities. So we'll keep doing that training. And then on the demand side, work with schools, helping them know how to work with artists. And as long as the money lasts, also do fee subsidy for putting artists in residence in schools. So we start to do some of that matchmaking and get arts experiences in more of our schools across the county. And then finally, grant making, which has been the one of the core services that we have provided at Creative Sonoma. And again, that balloons up and shrinks down depending on what the resources are that the county offers or that we are able to bring in from outside sources. So last slide on the plan, and then I'll stop and ask questions and get any other kind of comments. Our immediate next steps are that we are working on expanding our staff a little bit. This is also due to the funding from the grants that we received from Hewlett. So we're looking for a contract worker to help us with the piece I described about expanding our creative profiles on our website so that that can be really robust. It's not up to date because we haven't had time to keep it up to date. So we need to get some help to get that done and get folks used to updating it on their own a little more. And then once we feel like it's ready, we'll pivot and market it and start to make that a big piece of what we talk about in the community and say to the community, you want to know what Creative Sonoma is? Well, look at this list of 1,000 artists of creative people and creative organizations. This is the heft of creativity in this county when you look at this website. And then the other piece refers back to what I mentioned about our leaning into policy, which is we are have just received responses to an RFP that we put out for a consultancy to create a percent for art ordinance for the county. We are very happy to let you know that Tara has agreed to serve on our review committee. She has such great expertise and knowledge to help us select who our consultant might be for going forward. We will award that contract in January, and we hope that we will be on track to have something in front of the supervisors no later than December 2022 to vote on as to whether they want to approve a percent for art ordinance. In not too far the back of our minds, we are remembering that the county is about to embark on a brand new county complex. That's going to be a big budget project. Last I heard, it was about $500 million. So we want to make sure that we've got a percent for art ordinance in place before $500 million gets spent on a building project. If 1 or 2% of that could go for the arts, that would be a huge jumpstart for a program like this. So that's why we're pushing that at this particular point. So that is my brief on our plan. I would love to hear from you all, any questions or comments. And also, I've got a list of the things I think are commonalities with yours, but I would love to hear from you what kind of jumped out in terms of what you think are areas of intersection that you see right away.
Thank you for your presentation, Kristen. Committee members, please raise your hand and I'll call on you to facilitate. Lisa.
Yes. Hi, Kristen. Thank you so much. This was great. I looked over this the weekend and I reviewed quite a few what you had, and a lot of it is you know, it's the same thing as what we're trying to do, and not all of it, but there is definitely some highlights and stuff that we're trying to get together, and how our agenda has completely changed, and we're really trying to reach out there and have people notice us and who we are and what we have to offer. And, you know, to partnership and to assist people is something definitely what we would like to do. And what also too, what I think is important is that we don't unnecessarily duplicate anything that doesn't need to be. And, but when I was talking, because Ann and I are partnering right now and we're going over everything, and we had a meeting last week and we're going, and so I think, you know, when I was reaching out to a lot of organizations within Santa Rosa and individuals, and especially from people who have any kind of ties with Roseland and a few other areas, you know, I'm telling them all about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to offer. And I'm not getting a lot of the feedback that I'm getting some feedback, but for one of the things that you said that really stuck with me is you said we need to be a visible and trusted partner. And I think that is Ann and I's main focus. And so that's what we're going to try to do now is first, before we can do anything, we need to be a visible and trusted, you know, partner to the community, to the creative community. So, which I think is extremely important. Do you have any, I mean, what will your responses be about that? And how do we get out? You know, I'm thinking, you know, we need to brand ourselves as something else and as someone else. And, you know, even whether it be to be part of different kinds of or art events that are going on, set up a booth or something and tell people, be there, go to the people, because we can't expect the creative community to come to us when we're not that visible, trusted partner yet.
Thank you for outlining the challenges particularly well. Yes, those are definitely all of our challenges, I think. And it's especially hard, as I'm sure everybody knows, during COVID, because we aren't out in groups of people meeting the kind of way that we used to. And it's a little hard to develop relationships with people when you are starting from a stranger place and trying to do it one-on-one. So I'm not going to tell you that I have any earth-shattering responses to that. For Creative Sonoma, we have, for example, on our Arts and Equity cultural equity fellowships, we ended up hiring a contractor who is co-producing the program with us and will be the face of this program. Creative Sonoma does not need to be the face and the owner of this in this moment. We are happy to take a back seat and take whatever visibility we get from it. That sounds a little counter to being visible in the community, but we're going to be visible in new communities through our consultant helping us reach folks that we wouldn't have otherwise. Once we've provided meaningful service and hopefully that we do a good job with and that people want to brag about, then we should have all the fellowship participants being able to be those voices into the community for us and them talking about Creative Sonoma. And, it's a little at a time, I know, but that's definitely it's the she told two friends and then she told two friends kind of mentality about it, to try to expand what we're doing that way. And then, as always, we're always looking for ways to just work with in the other regular structures of social media and news, media, et cetera, here to try to do that. But I think word of mouth, especially for that trusted piece, it has to be word of mouth in order for that trust to be established.
Okay. That makes sense.
I thought there were, I felt like the obviously public art is now a crossover area. We would love to supplement what you all have been doing so well in places that are outside Santa Rosa. So that would be really great for us. I love that you all have using community leaders to champion arts programming. That feels like a really common goal for both of us to be able to do that. Focus on diversity and bringing new voices. You guys are looking, nimble, I think is the word in your strategic plan. We're using adaptability, but those are very obviously common ideas. So I think there's just really a lot. Oh, and the building mutually beneficial relationships with our other government partners. I know you're thinking of that at the city level, just as we're thinking about it at the county level. So I think we can learn from each other. And the more we can sort of model together how this can work, the better for both of us. You guys are obviously the big dogs in terms of municipalities in the county, and we lean on that heavily and are delighted by having had the relationship that we've had so far with who you are and what you're doing, and just are looking forward to doing more. I would do 2 minutes more, but I don't want to, I'm not paying very good attention to time. So you should let me know if I've got a couple minutes to talk about the project that we're just getting underway on.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Okay. So sort of as an outgrowth of this whole concept is a campaign that we're working on that will be a countywide campaign. And again, I'll point to Tara, who's been a really good thought partner with us as we've been pulling this together. And it's really going to be a countywide creative placemaking campaign. And the focus of it is to highlight the value of art in community development and in our public realm and all the things that we talked about as we went through this plan. And we're going to be talking about working on this campaign in 2 tracks. One is on the artist track, and one is on the advocates track. And advocates in this context, wait, let me rewind. One important thing to say, this concept is in the planning stages. This will still morph and change along the way. Not everything is fully defined. So this is not a fully baked idea, but it's getting closer. So back to the 2 tracks, artists and advocates. Advocates in this regard are going to be people who are users, buyers, sponsors, supporters of art. And that could be businesses, it could be municipalities, it could potentially be arts organizations that use and support artists in their work, all of whom are going to be driven, we hope, through this narrow end of the funnel of doing creative placemaking in their communities. So for artists, the program is going to involve trainings. Again, all the things that we normally do that we talked about in the plan, trainings on placemaking and those placemaking skills, how to work with public agencies, how to collaborate, things that some artists say they want to do but may not have skills to do, things that are getting required more and more for artists who want to respond to RFPs. They're more and more asking them, how are you going to talk to the community about what it is that you do here? What kind of community engagement techniques do you have? So we feel like doing that training will help our folks help our community, but it will also help our artists and creatives compete better for commissions they may be looking for outside our community. So they're going to get training. They'll be networking through a cohort of the artists that will participate in this program, which will go over a few months. and they'll get mini grants to fund new work that they will be placing in the public realm. It could be at a business, it could be on public property, it could be any kind of location, but that we will find funding. We have some, and we'll be providing that funding for those projects to occur. And they'll be using whatever that project is as they go through the training. So it'll be, here's the project, and you're working on it and learning about it and learning how to use these techniques as you're developing this project. So that's the artist track. The advocates track, very similar. They get training. They get to learn how to work with artists. They get to learn how to incorporate art into their business models. They will get speakers talking about case studies of good and bad examples. So for example, we'll probably call someone from Petaluma and the Bathtub Project to come in and talk about that. Why did that work? Why didn't that work? And so they can learn about how can they best use art and who's in this community that they can rely on or they can reach out to talk to about doing it. They'll get to network with these other potential partners in their cohort. They'll get access to these newly trained and skilled artists that we've got going through this cohort. And then they'll get access to be the host of one of these art projects that's built for, made on, designed for their particular space. We're hopeful that they will volunteer their spaces to do that. And so, then all the details of how that all works. Who's carrying the insurance? How is who owns the piece? How do we get them all together? That's all still to come. But we think that we have enough funding and enough interest to be in multiple communities across the county. We know we have interest in Petaluma, in Sonoma Valley, in Windsor, in Santa Rosa, and in Healdsburg, and hopefully we can get a few more communities to participate. We're working with municipalities and chambers of commerce and local art centers. Those are the key starting points. We're working with a fantastic organization out of Minneapolis to do the training. They do this for a living. They are the best of the best, Springboard for the Arts. So we've got some really wonderful resources to rely on to get it done. And we think at the end of this, we'll have a dozen or more, maybe 24 new pieces of art all around the county that if we all come together and talk about it with our arms wrapped around it and common messaging, we go back to the concept of how are we visible? How do we let people know about what we're doing? Because we're all saying the same thing about art and creative placemaking all over the county. So that's it. 1,000 things still are going to go could go wrong with that whole plan, or that aren't designed yet to be finished. But that's the general idea. And again, we're really looking forward to that and partnering with you all on it in terms of how that fits, how what you are already doing can fit into that and help us decide and how to talk to other communities about how what they may already be doing can fit into that big scheme as well. Anybody have any questions about that or anything else? Happy to answer them.
Well, this is awesome. Kristen, are you working with Sonoma State or JC or other kinds of places where people are getting slightly higher level arts, if not art degrees? There is actually beyond just feeling artistic, there's actually schooling and pursuit of career, or is there any connection with finding people in that sort of realm?
I want to make sure I'm hearing your question. So yes, we do work with the JC and SSU, particularly through our arts education efforts. There's a current conversation going on about getting a certification program together, for example, for teaching artists, and maybe that will live in one of the other of those places. And yes, we know them and work with them in terms of trying to get the word out to students or recent graduates or others to participate in our programs, if that's where you're asking.
I just was kind of thinking about those kind of bubbling up places where, so I just wondered if they were standing alone or that kind of thing. Yeah,
absolutely.
I come from Seattle, which really has some really interesting layering of for culture, and which is a great kind of spawning. I got to be part of that when I was just coming into kind of an emerging artist kind of stage, and there was like retreats, and then it was like artists rooting for one another. They would sort of award grants and money and awards for different people at different times of their careers. There were different levels of things they were doing, like many cities do. But then it wasn't like everyone, you didn't get it. I mean, you never will. There was this sort of sense of people coming around, like the artist community was watching each other come forward and come. It was really
Nice.
empowering.
Yeah.
So I hear some of that in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's not just getting the buyers, the people that want to pursue or consume art or, you know, integrate it. It's also support amongst the artists. I really have a heart for that, of just that they aren't alone and we're not just pushing them around to do things. So I just wanted to say that. I think it's great.
Thanks.
Yeah, I have a related thought that's a kind of a recurring question for me in my limited involvement with arts advocacy organizations, which is that artists tend to, you know, have really robust networks and organizational capabilities for, you know, conceiving of and producing and executing their own kind of projects. And I often wonder about how receptive organizations can be to those kinds of projects that are really conceived of and driven by artists. I don't know. I don't know if I'm making sense. I think a lot of the time it's easy to get, as an artist, it's easy to get hung up on, you know, questions about how to engage with these kinds of structures, you know, that are sort of being laid out by the advocacy organization.
Right. I think
as opposed to shorter term grants. Sorry.
If I'm hearing you correctly, there's the struggles from time immemorial of an artist's vision and making that fit and be in sync with the person who may be I'll call it sponsor / host / commissioner of an art project. Is that what you're asking about?
I guess I'm asking about the methods that you're using as an organization to encourage and accommodate artist-driven and initiated projects.
Well, so there are, in this particular big project that we're talking about, I think we are not designing this that it is artist-driven or advocate-driven. We are designing this to be, we've got artists and we've got advocates and they're on parallel tracks. And by the way, they're going to come together. And so hence the topics for workshops about collaboration, about learning for businesses, how do they work with artists, for artists, how do they work with businesses, et cetera. So the idea being not one superseding the other, but everybody gives and takes a little as you come together and make something happen together. Separate from that, I would say that in our grant program, our regular grant making program, that is a place where that is about within certain guidelines that we have because of the funding that we receive and any stipulations on that, tell us what you want to do. And here is funding for that. So that would be a place where something that's a little more purely designed by an artist and or arts organization would have room within what our current offerings are.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Now I know I've used up all the time. There is. Thank you. I'm just going to say thank you so much for everything that you guys have been doing and the energy that you're all bringing to the table. It's been 5 years since I last spoke to this group, and I don't think there's a single carryover, maybe one carryover face. So yeah, there we go. Right. So it's nice to see fresh faces and perspective engaged in this, and we're really looking forward to where you guys are going to head with your strategic plan and where we're going to head with ours, and hopefully we'll be able to you know, have some success together. So thank you so much for the time to talk about it all.
And I'm just going to jump in and say, I'm sorry I was late, Kristen. I think the plan from my initial review looks great, and I look forward to working together as it's always a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. Great. Thank you. Do you push me back to obscurity now? I go off the screen.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks,
Bye.
Kristen.
Thank you so much, Kristen.
Yep.
So Kristen Kiefer, I think that if the committee wants to have any other discussion, we can. There's no action being taken, but at some point you do need to ask for public comments just to make sure there aren't any.
Okay, at this time, were there any other questions from committee members? Any other thoughts about Kristen's presentation that we can discuss as a committee? Seeing none, I'll ask our recording secretary, do we have any public comments for this item?
We have no public comments at this time.
Great, thanks, Eileen. I did quickly want to say I do appreciate hearing about the strategic plan from Creative Sonoma and am very encouraged that there is a lot of overlap between the two plans. And but to echo Lisa's point, I don't want us to, or I want us to be thoughtful about how we're not duplicating any work, but working in tandem with our supporting partners. And very exciting that the county is considering a % for art funding program. This was something that I was a little surprised that we didn't already have in our county. So I'm looking forward to hearing more. Great. So in lieu of there being no further discussion topics on item 5.1, I will move next to project updates 5.2. Tara, will you please give us a presentation about updates on current projects?
Sure, thank you, Kristen. I just have a few verbal updates today, and we'll hopefully be bringing back some of these items to the committee for consideration at our next or a future meeting. So to start off, to let you know about the Unum sculpture for Courthouse Square, we were hoping to bring the final engineering and design and recommended list of words to the Art and Public Places Committee for approval at either our November or December meetings. But due to delays with the engineering on the artist side, she has requested more time and the item will appear on a future agenda. So that's the update on that piece. For the 5th Street parking garage project, the Help Each Other Grow design, the artist services agreement with the selected artists is being finalized, and we are still on track for an installation of that project in early 2022. For the Asawa art panels, great news on this one. Last week, council approved using $300,000 of one-time funds from the PG&E settlement to fund the bronze casting and installation of the panels in Courthouse Square. Yay! At the same time, they also approved the agreement that we need with the foundry who will be doing the work for us. So I will be making a site visit down to the foundry actually this week to take a look at the mold tests they have been making, which is like a traditional bronze mold making process versus a 3D scanning mold making process, to look at the results that will help us determine what the best option is for this project. The Asawa family members, as well as the project conservator, will also be there to assess the results. And deservingly so, this project has received much attention. It was featured on the KQED newscast last week, and it's been in local print media, among others. So it's been great to have the attention on getting these panels back for the public to enjoy them. So the project that we started talking about with the project development committee, which is Nathan and Kristen, which is including artists in the general plan update. We've been working hard on figuring out what that means, what that could look like, and the project development task force has been really helpful in that brainstorming. I've continued to work with the Santa Rosa Forward team, the other city staff in the planning department, as well as their consultants, to come up with an outline on how we might be able to proceed with this project. They actually have grant funds through a Kaiser grant for the general plan update and the equity component to it. And we are proceeding with identifying artists and sites in equity priority communities or areas in Santa Rosa for these types of projects. And they would be based on the topics of environmental justice, health, and housing. So we're narrowing that down. We've got a good framework going, and because it's receiving grant funding outside of public art funding, which is wonderful, we're really proceeding with kind of getting that fully fleshed out, identifying artists and possible locations. And then I'll be bringing back a fuller report, more comprehensive report on what that looks like to the committee as soon as I have all of that prepared. And then I wanted to share a little bit more information about what Kristen touched on, this big project that we've been collaborating on with Springboard for the Arts. So if you recall, we did identify in our strategic plan, the Public Art Strategic Plan, and in this year's annual plan, a line item for commissions and grants to artists for installations or performances in underserved neighborhoods that are reflective of the demographics of the community. So we're really looking at the possibility of potentially using the funds that we had set aside for those projects, combining them and essentially acting as an advocate in the advocate-artist relationship and how this project would work, so that we can be a partner in this project that Creative Sonoma is launching. So again, I'll be bringing back a full report on this on a future agenda so you can see what that might look like for our participation. But it's been great to do the brainstorming with her to see if that's all possible. So those are the project updates that I have today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Tara. I have a quick question regarding Unum and the so the final design, the engineering, and the words will be coming back for our review. Do you have an anticipation for project installation at this point, or is this subject to that update?
Yeah, I mean, there's been obviously a lot of delays in the project, right? We had COVID that set us back about 6 months. And so if we hadn't had any other delays due to COVID, we were looking at early 2022 as our expected installation date. But because the outreach component to gather the words and phrases and languages for the piece took longer than anticipated, and now that the artist is having delays with the engineering on her end, you know, that might get pushed back again. But we should know more from her when we get the final documents for this last approval that's needed from Art in Public Places. So hopefully I can provide a timing update when that presentation comes up.
And then for our information, is there a building permit coordination, or is it only with the engineering division?
It's only with the engineering division, but it will have building review. Obviously, there will be footings being put in the square for the piece, but because of how it's a city project, it will just be going through engineering.
Great. Thanks. And then I had one other question in regards to the Kaiser grant for working with the general plan update. You mentioned the equity priority areas and focusing on environmental health, housing, and I missed the third topic.
Environmental justice.
Sorry.
Health and housing.
Thank you.
Environmental justice is one thing. Health and housing are two separate.
Great, thank you. Do any other committee members have any questions for Tara regarding our update today? Great, thank you, Tara. We appreciate it. Some great news going into the holidays this year. So, item number 6, going forward, we have ad hoc task force reports and discussion. Do any, sorry, I'll call on the diversity, equity, inclusion, and access task force first. Do you guys have an update to present?
Yes, Anne and I do. We've been discussing a lot, and then also reaching out to, you know, individuals and some creative groups. And what I'm, you know, and after because we wrote everything down and what we're gonna, you know, what we're trying to do. But after I did look at Creative Sonoma and what their plan was and their agenda, yeah, there's one thing that did stand out, and this is what I found too, and what I've said before, was the being a visible and trusted partner. And even though I'm explaining to as many people as I can, anybody who will listen, our agenda and, you know, how we're just completely, have a completely different idea and who we're trying to reach out to and what we're trying to do. Being accessible, being visible, and being trusted is that has not been established, and that's a big hurdle that I think we need to establish. And I'm not sure. I mean, we're just trying to brainstorm a lot of ways. How do we do that? How do we make ourselves visible? I mean, do we go, you know, do we, like I said before, do we set up booths? Do we go out to these events and, you know, and be there and invite people to ask us questions, who we are, what we are, and make a brand for ourselves. And, you know, we're a committee that's part of the city of Santa Rosa, and we're here for you. We don't want to be a hurdle. We want to be an open door and give you as much information as possible. And Anne, do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
One thing we have been talking about too is that it would be really great to get someone appointed for the Roseland area and understand that it's a process. People need to apply. They need to be in the bank. Was that right, Tara? There needs to be an application, and they need to be willing to sit on these meetings and spend this kind of time. I realize not everyone's interested in this kind of work, although the more and more I have a friend that has been with the city's arts and culture in Seattle for some years. She was a parent when I was teaching up there. And I corresponded with her quite a bit. She sent me some documents and turned us on to Austin, Texas, has been doing a lot of stuff, just trying to get more diversity into their very program and policies. And a lot of it is having people represented at every level. And so this seems kind of an obvious that we would have more representation on our board. So, our committee, whatever we call us. So we talked about that, and not knowing those people, I feel a little bit hands tied on that. So maybe does anyone have any ideas about how to reach out and get some people so that that council person could actually nominate someone?
Yeah, I mean, because that was another thing too that we discussed. I mean, if you know, because Roseland does come up, and since we don't have someone there to partner with, someone that represents, that does an issue. And I've been telling everybody, please apply, but then I realized we need to also let them know, do you have questions before you apply? How can we assist you to apply? It's not, you know, and just give them the lowdown on, this is what, you know, it takes to be on the committee. This is what you need. And, you know, I just think there's some hesitation of the unknown, and that unknown, I don't want to be there anymore. And so make a presence and just to be, you know, I want to get ideas. I mean, because Anne and I are looking at, you know, what other ideas, what can we do? How do we go about doing this? But I also want to get ideas from other committee members here on what you think would work. What ideas do you have?
Yeah,
Nathan?
Yeah, I think it would be very helpful to have public facing events. And I know this is a particularly difficult time for that, but I'm organizing this art fair in March. There'll be a bunch of different Bay Area artist-run organizations. I think that would be a good opportunity for Art in Public Places to have a booth. I don't know how feasible that is in terms of how many representatives we could have. But I don't, you know, I think that might be that's something that occurred to me.
Yeah, no, and I'd be willing, I just, you know, just plan it out at different events, more than willing to show my face with another committee member, be out there and just, you know, be visible. And people have questions, here I am, please, you know, ask us questions. We're here to help and assist.
Yeah.
It might be helpful, I thought, to even have a schedule of things that are actually like that as we open up more that are going on, that would be part of our meetings, that we would know where there were things happening in our city, and we could talk about how we could either both get to them ourselves or have some representation. So
agree.
I know previously I did attend a couple of the city's open houses and participated as, you know, a member of the Art and Public Places Committee and handed out brochures and maps about the public art program. I know previously there was the QR code poster in one of the, there was a QR poster in downtown Santa Rosa in the square to advertise the walking tour that you can do around downtown. I find that to be a very great way to advertise kind of what our city has in general already, but to kind of get ideas about where else, you know, opportunities could happen, or I mean, between it's interesting that, you know, our purview is really kept to the projects that are on public spaces, and so thinking about our involvement there, but thinking about how there can be smaller or different types of projects than just the traditional installation of a mural or a sculpture. I think that that's a fruitful conversation to have with people too, not just advertising of, hey, this is who we are and what we do, but hey, what do you want art to look like in your community? I think that might be another eye-opening conversation to have.
I just wanted to add that we, I know that I've mentioned this before, and we'll have more updates coming, but we are working on how the public art program is branded through the Out There Santa Rosa program. And so, you know, the programs are kind of merging into one. It's still called Out There Santa Rosa, but the new website that we're currently working on that should be launching soon, so early next year, really is a lot of what you're talking about in terms of a place for people to see all of the cool, unusual art, creative things you can do in Santa Rosa. It's not necessarily a calendar listing because there's already places for that. We don't want to duplicate efforts there, but it's specifically highlighting Santa Rosa through the out there lens, right? And so public art and the types of projects that we do and support and are aware of that maybe aren't ours, our own commission projects, but out in the community, we want to highlight those and lift those up and make them visible. So I think that that ties in a lot about what you're saying in terms of how are we a visible and trusted partner, I think can happen a lot through the launching of this new website and how it's branded throughout their Santa Rosa. One of the cool components of the new website will be a map of Santa Rosa. So that is drawn by a visual artist. So there's a real, I don't know, artistic representation of the geography of where we live as well, with key kind of icons, some are artworks throughout Santa Rosa that you can recognize, buildings, architecture, open spaces, things like that. So anyway, I think that just keep that in mind, that there's a lot going on that's happening on that front, that as soon as we have that ready to share, I'm sure our consultants would love to come and talk to you about it. So.
That's great to hear, Tara. Thank you for the update.
Great. Jeff, do you have a quick little update about community engagement, or kind of just some questions that our team can think about?
Yeah, Melanie and I did not have a chance to meet this last month specifically about APPC community engagement, but Melanie did attend a museum's committee meeting about community engagement. As we reported previously, we're looking at parallel goals and collaborating where possible. So it looks like there will possibly be a future endeavor in which APPC, the museum, and other organizations might partner on what we're looking at trying to establish, which would be a storytelling festival that would happen annually. Oops. pardon my phone ringing. I'll turn off the ringer. The idea is somewhat loosely based on a project from Toronto, which is called Block by Block, in which people sharing their stories, generally cultural and historical, lead to performances and public art works that help define a particular neighborhood. So we're looking at this model. It's something that we need to do a little bit more work on, and then most likely in the not too distant future or sometime in the new year, we'll be bringing something to this committee to talk about, because we see the potential for us to go generally block by block or neighborhood by neighborhood to try to engage the community in a project that will have both the storytelling as well as performance as well as public art component, most likely in temporary projects, but you never know. I mean, maybe there might be some possibilities for future permanent projects as well. It's all baby steps right now. And that's pretty much it.
Great, thank you. That is exciting to think about as a neighborhood storytelling event. I would be interested in hearing some more about that. So
Right.
Please share when you have more information.
To be continued.
Great. I'll start off the project development task force update. Nathan, Tara, and I did hop on a meeting with the city's Santa Rosa Forward team and their consultant for the strategic or for the general plan update. Sorry, was that in October? I'm not remembering when that meeting was, but since that point, Nathan and I didn't have an opportunity to connect specifically, but it sounds like there has been some update that Tara just presented to us today about the Kaiser grant, and that is some great fuel for us to connect and think about and get back to our team. So thank you, Tara, for presenting that forward. I will say I was very excited to hear about Kristen Madsen talking about placemaking as a big part of Creative Sonoma's specific plan, and then going forward with the county and that being layered into their strategic efforts. Sometimes placemaking, I know when I was in school, it was a very exciting concept, but then in actuality, the application of it can be quite abstract unless you have a specific project. So I was glad to see, I see opportunity for project development teaming up with Creative Sonoma, especially in those workshop and classes. I will look into taking those, but Nathan, did you have anything else to pipe in?
No, sounds good. Thanks.
Great. Well, thanks, guys. This has been a fruitful conversation about where we're going next with our task forces, and I think this is taking good shape. With committee reports, I forgot to ask everyone if there were any events that you had attended or anything that you wanted to announce regarding art events in the area. Nathan.
There's a local artist named Catherine Siak who just finished a 3-year book project, and there will be a release for that on the 18th.
Where will that be?
At Escalar.
Okay.
And I think that'll be fun, interesting.
Nathan, if you'd like to send the information to that to me, I can distribute it to
Okay, thanks.
everybody. Mm-hmm.
Jeff, please, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Just really briefly, we do have a new exhibition that opened that I think will be of interest to everybody. It's our annual Artistry and Wood exhibition. This is featuring works by the Sonoma County Woodworkers Association. And we have, because we really weren't able to do the show last year, we had a small sampling last year, but it was only viewable virtually. We decided that we would go bigger and bolder this year. So it's a pretty impressive exhibition. And whether you are a fan of fine woodcraft or not, I think it's just an absolutely stunning show. And so I'd love for everybody to have a look. We do have continuing exhibitions. And we do have a series of events planned, but being that it's COVID, we're still being cautious about how much we do in person. All available on the museum's website, museumsc.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. And I've been to the woodworking ones before, and I'm a huge fan of woodworking, and they have just, oh my God, some of the furnishings there is amazing, just beautiful, pristine, perfectly done. And it looks like it has, obviously they put a lot of work into each and every piece.
Even better this year. Actually, the inventiveness is something that really strikes me, because it's not just fine tables and chairs. There's some really gorgeous and quite impressive sculptural pieces, and some small gems of like bowls and you know, just these items that you just, I don't know. It's like you want to touch and handle everything. But
you do. I agree. Yes, and everybody needs to check out too is the joinery on how that is done and what they do to make that. That is one of the most impressive items I remember seeing.
Thank you for those comments.
Thanks. If there are no other reports to give out, I will move on to our future agenda items. We have our ongoing list of, sorry?
Oh, I think it was just feedback. For whatever reason, everyone's had more feedback than normal this time. So continue.
Thanks. Ongoing items that we continue to think about are private partnerships, commercial real estate, and local artists, how the Art and Public Places Committee can support community programs and events. There's some great conversation about that today. And then commemoration or memorial pieces for the fires from a couple of years. Lastly, budget for visiting artists or lecture program. Great to hear about your, Nathan, your program in March coming forward. So we'll look forward to hearing about that. Thanks.
So this is also the time that if anyone has any other thoughts on items you'd like to put on the list, you can offer those up now.
Maybe this is a place to put that idea I had, which would be, especially for those of us that we haven't been here very long, and definitely it's mostly been during the pandemic. If we could get an interior list of things going on that we might want to be present at and show up at, or collaborate on showing up together at, or just maybe the promotion, or how maybe we could have, I have to make this as an agenda item. Maybe we could discuss a way to develop community amongst ourselves in terms of promoting and art on a personal level, You know what I mean? When I mean say personal, I mean like showing up, rather than just doing our own research. So is that appropriate, or is that, meaning in terms of, I know we could gather, but I don't even know what I'm saying. But what I mean is, could we pursue the idea of more collaborative discussion and sharing of resources amongst this group?
I think, yeah, it sounds like, I think like if I'm hearing you, I think having that be a future agenda item.
Yeah.
That's the last thing you said is
that's what I was trying to get to.
More
like,
appropriate.
Yeah, no, exactly. I was forming it while I said it. I don't have a fully formed thought on this.
Sure. Okay. Well, I also think that there are lots of ways that individuals could find out all the events that are happening around town. And so, I mean, there's a lot of information already out there. There might be a desire for the committee to discuss how there could be some component of perhaps the engagement task force that helps compile that list to share to the committee members, or directs the committee to certain websites to check. And then maybe if there's an identified list of events that you collectively feel the APPC should have a presence at, coming up with like a sign-up sheet so members know that they're supposed to go to that event. I mean, there's a whole bunch of ways that the event component of how your question started off could work. But again, I guess that type of discussion could be put on a future agenda item to have more of a brainstorm about that, if that's that would be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. For me, that would be helpful. Yeah.
I second putting that on an upcoming agenda.
Okay.
Great. There's no other future agenda items. I'd like to move us on to item 8, department reports.
Hi, great. So I just have a brief report here to share that David Ward, who has been our project manager for the last 2 years, he was specifically hired to be a part of the Courthouse Square project and then the 5th Street parking garage project. This is his last week with us here in Santa Rosa. He is moving on to work full-time for the planning consultants that support the Petaluma Public Art Committee. So he'll be continuing to do work. I'm sure that we will work together at some point. And he couldn't be here today to personally wish everyone a farewell. But I wanted to send along his regards to all of you, and I will take back well wishes to him that we're sad to see him go, but best of luck in his future endeavors. And then that leads me to introduce Jessica Rasmussen, who's worked for the Public Art Program for many years now and has been an amazing, wonderful colleague in all of the things that we do. She's specifically been involved with the rotating art exhibits that the program traditionally hosted in all of our rec facilities, the National Arts Program, Live at Juilliard, our concert series. She was incredibly helpful in last year's Open and Out. She was one of the artists featured in Open and Out, as well as project managing some of the other projects. So she will be taking over some assigned projects from David as he's leaving. So we'll be working more with her on some of our public art projects while we are developing a longer term solution for our staffing needs. So I just wanted to say hi to Jessica and goodbye to David. Thank you, David. And hi, Jessica. Thank you, Jessica.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. This is actually my first APPC meeting I've ever sat in on. It was great. Thank you for all your work you're doing.
Nice, great.
So those are my project updates. That's it. Happy to answer any questions, but that's all I have for today.
Well, I'm wishing Beth the best for David. He'll be missed, but I'm really happy to see Jessica's face right now. So yay.
I'm looking forward to working with you all more too.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Jessica. Good to meet you and be looking forward to working with you more.
Likewise.
Great. At this time, that is all of the items we have on our agenda. So I will be adjourning our meeting. Thank you all. And our next scheduled meeting will be on January 3rd of 2022.
Actually, it won't. It's canceled. One of the agenda, I think the revised agenda has the correct language on it, that unfortunately it's canceled due to, that's the observed New Year's Day holiday for some city staff. And so we will not be holding the meeting that day. I suspect that we will have a special meeting called sometime in January, though, because we're hoping that the Unum engineering and all of the rest of that is ready by that time. So please check your email and you'll get a notice of that potential meeting then.
Well, we'll stay tuned for our next special meeting. Until then, everyone have a safe and happy holidays. Best wishes and Happy New Year.
Great.
Happy New Year.
New Year's.
Happy holidays.